Good morning to all of you beautiful listeners out there. This is Mirilena Lee and the fabulous.
Shannon Morrison.
And we are here with the Divine Play Podcast, a practical guide to living with joy. And we are so happy you are here. Today we are talking about light. We're going to talk about light. And no, we're not talking about photography. We're talking about the light that shines in each and every one of us and why we tend to dim it. And with that, I will pass the floor to Shannon because this one was her idea.
This came up. This came up this week in a conversation with the leadership group, and where it was presented, and it's been a thing that we have talked about for so long. And I feel like in relationships, it comes up a lot. I mean, if you resonate, put it in the chat, put it in the comments, be like, yeah, I have became half of myself so that dot dot dot. You can probably fill in the blank, whether it be like I was the better partner, or I didn't ruffle feathers at home, or I was less than myself in authenticity because somebody was like, okay, well, you're too much. You're too much. Like, you're too loud. You talk too much. I just, whatever, And so the question here, I would love to have a conversation with, because I think it comes up in a lot of times. And we're here to have a joyful life, to create a joyful life, connected, loving, respectful. And there's going to be resentful feelings if one person dims their light to acknowledge somebody else's way of being. And so that's why it came up.
I'm really glad that you brought up the term resentment because I've done so much work like in the recovery space, coming up through the 12 steps. We talk a lot about resentment. Resentment is like the number one killer for an alcoholic. And
Mhm.
it is one of those things where resentment, a lot of times we like to see that resentment that we have and we know we have it and we blame it on the other people involved.
Mhm.
However, resentment is always my responsibility. My resentments are my responsibility. My resentments are my choice. And usually, when I have a resentment, it is because I have chosen to dim my light, to not do what I want to do, to not be as big as I want to be in my personality or how I'm living my
Mhm.
life or what I'm doing because I'm trying to make other people happy or I'm
Mhm.
worried about the judgment of other people. And so I am people pleasing. But
Mhm.
here's the other flip side of that, it's also self seeking and self serving. And it took me a while to wrap my head around that because my dimming of my light as a people pleaser, so I didn't make other people uncomfortable in most cases
Mhm.
because I was either too
Exactly.
emotional or I was too obnoxiously loud when I laughed, or I was too exuberant, or I was melodramatic because I expressed my feelings so openly. I usually would dim my light because it made other people uncomfortable. On the
Mhm.
surface, that seems like I'm being selfless, that I am, sacrificing what I need or my full expression to make other people comfortable is selfless, but it's self-seeking and it's self-serving. It's actually deeply manipulative. And it's manipulative because I'm trying to control the narrative about myself. I want people to like me. I want people to
Mhm.
think that I'm fun to be around. I want everybody to think that I am agreeable or whatever it is. And so that actually ultimately becomes a manipulation that leads to a resentment. And it doesn't work in the long run because if they don't like who I am when I'm being the real me and I'm pretending, they never liked me to begin with because I'm
Exactly.
a fake version.
Exactly. I feel like if if you are dimming your light to fit in, no one really knows who you are.
Mhm.
No one really can create a connected relationship in any facet. In a relationship, in business, opportunity, family, partnership, intimacy with your kids, like nothing if you're fake. If you're not actually showing up in your values. And I feel like if you're dimming your light, you're not showing up in your true values, what you truly believe, and you are putting that to the side to people please and make everything just comfortable for everyone, um, which in the long run will, even in the short run, it's never a win-win. because there's going to be such a negative reinforcement and a mirrored back sooner rather than later. Like you're creating an environment that nothing positive can happen from. There is no joy in what will be created because there's going to be such a hostility in the relationship at some point, right? And then
Yeah.
you have to backtrack and be like, well, actually, I'm Catholic. And they'll be like 20 years ago, what? You know what I mean? Like it could be like that harsh. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm just saying politically correctness, you get to say out loud who you are to your core being and to attract the correct people, to level up in your wellness for yourself, to understand or evolve in the human you are meant to be. You get to be all of you. And I know that in previous relationships and business work, I always said yes and I people pleased and it kicked me in the own ass, right? I created this environment where everybody knew, I felt like I was in control. So I resonate with that too. And there is no control. You can't control the environment. But what we can do is show up authentically and without fear. So how do you show up authentically without fear of judgment if you're in a new environment? We get to do it initially, right? The initial face to face, you're not cringy, not holding back. What did somebody say yesterday? I got on a Zoom and they were like, it was like a spam, like a troll. It was kind of like I was so worried that you weren't a real person. So like, how do you show up in the real person that you are? If it's your first time meeting somebody,
You know,
what do you say to that?
this is one of those things where this is where you do the work every day. And it's if you once again, Abraham Hicks fans, give us a thumbs
Hmm.
up. I know you
I
love
know he comes up,
Abraham.
right?
Always,
They
only
come
every
up, they
episode
come
it
up.
comes up, right? But one of the things I remember from one of Abraham's talks was, get ready to be ready to be ready to be ready to be ready. This is what we talk about when we talk about manifesting, what we talk about when we
Hmm.
talk about getting in alignment with
Hmm.
our desires. And so every single day is a practice of learning to love yourself as you are. And it's the tool that I always come back to: question your story. Every time you have a thought about yourself that is that voice in your head that says you're too loud, you're so awkward, you are not funny, people are going to think you're weird, you get to question that story. And like last night, we went out, we met a new person last night, some new friends. And I do this thing when I get in a social situation with people I don't really know or people that I actually really want to like me. I will go into some kind of story or I will make comments and they are totally awkward. And then I will like get into it. And then I'm like, oh God, that was really awkward. And then I'm trying to like dig my way out of it by taking it in
I
this
hear you.
direction and explaining myself. And it gets even more awkward. And I just looked at this new friend last night and I was like, you know what? I was like, just so you know, fair warning, I can get a little socially awkward and then I start to dig myself in like circles and like I keep digging my hole deeper and then I don't know how to
Hmm.
get out of it and it just becomes an awkward social thing. And just by owning that part of me,
Yep.
I felt so much better, number one, and then I stopped worrying about it. And
Yeah,
I
because
was
the relief was there. You were like, oh, I can breathe because I was like open and
mhm,
genuine. And if
mhm,
I show up awkwardly, they're already ready for it, right? And we're gonna show
mhm.
up. We're both quirky. I'm quirky too. Like I say, I'm like, wow,
Yes.
that just came out of my mouth. I'm like, dang, Shannon, that was, you know what? But it is what it is.
Mhm.
I get the looks, from my mother sometimes. Like, I was like, well, the brain worked before, or the mouth worked before the brain, like whatever. I am awkward and I speak my mind and my face. I'm not good at poker.
Right.
So
And I also don't do small talk.
yeah.
And I tell people that right off the bat. I'm a huge introvert. I have trouble with small talk and I'm a little nerve spicy. So like I'm a squirrel. Like I'm all over. Okay. Like try to keep track of my conversation. If you do, you
Oh
get a
my
point.
gosh. Neurospicy. I love it. We're gonna do hashtag that. We gotta save that.
Hashtag neuro
But what
spicy.
comes up, something came up for me just a minute ago. So like say you're not being authentic and you've been in a relationship for a long time or you've been in a corporation. And if you are normally stuck in your values, your like core values, you're like, this is the way I am, this is what I do, this is who I am. And then at some point there's a shift those who love you and know you the best can get you back in the like be like, oh, this is a little
Right.
bit like this is outside of who I knew Miri would be. Like, are you sure this is in alignment? So, like, if you are authentic, we always life happens. Life lifes us, and sometimes we get into it's kind of two switches here, but sometimes we get into like full focus on like doing something and it might not necessarily be in alignment. And if you are intentionally you all the time, your 3 a.m. friends or those core people will kind of like lead you
Mm-hmm.
back into your right tunnel, right? But if you don't ever show up authentically, you won't ever have those 3 a.m. friends that no matter what will keep you on the right track or help encourage you, not keep you. It is choices, friends. But like literally would be have those hard conversations where they don't feel like they have to dim themselves. They'd be like, I love you and I'm a little nervous for you. I feel these feelings. Like, I just feel like there's something going on. There's something underneath this. Like, what's the story here? Like, is this your truth? Are you creating this in alignment, in joy and love in creation? Or is this trying to be something different than you really are? And so I don't know. It just comes up so much, and it came up in this workshop that I just did. You're not crazy, like
Mm-hmm.
3 times, and then it came up in another conversation. So it's got to be. It's true to so many people.
So, well, and also kind of to circle back around about like how do you show up and be your authentic self? And that's also the how do I not give a fuck what other people think of me question.
Judgment, fear of
Like,
judgment over here.
how do I just
Working on
not
that.
care what people think of me? And
Hmm.
I will tell you, I've gone through a ton of like caring what people think of me,
Hmm.
worrying that people are going to think I am crazy, think that I'm weird, think that I'm out there, think that I'm super woo-woo as fuck. Oh wait, that one's true.
I
Right, but
mean,
right, but like, or that people will judge me for being as
hmm.
out there as I am or believing the things that I believe. And what I've come to is once again, it is that self-love piece
Hmm.
because what they think of you is irrelevant. It is irrelevant.
Irrelevant. What other
And
people think is
it's a
irrelevant. Love
it's a
it.
poster in my workbook. Um,
It doesn't matter.
yeah, a guy asked me at work a question a couple years ago, and that was what flew out of my mouth. And I was like, oh, I was like, what do you think of me as irrelevant? And like, and the look on his face. And he's like a really out there person who is like super, just like kind of eccentric and super, he's just super dramatic and fun and in himself, right? And
Hmm.
he was floored. The look on his face was like I had slapped him across the face, and he was like, did you just say that what I think of you is irrelevant? And I
It
said,
is.
yeah. And I felt like it was a mic drop. Like I couldn't even believe it came out of my mouth with the ease that it did. And he
Yep.
was like, "Oh my God, yes, queen." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah," because what they think of us all is irrelevant. And we've heard this from people. I mean, this comes in so many ways, right? Like
Mhm.
pretty sure RuPaul said like what they think of you
Yep.
is none of your business, but like that
Mhm.
has also been said by like 50 billion people over the last 2000
Yep.
years.
It has.
And it really is so true. And I think what I think of myself is so much more important than what
Mhm.
anybody else thinks of me. And I say
It is.
this to my friends, my clients, my
Mhm.
kids, my husband. What I
Everybody.
think of you is irrelevant. I am really in awe of what you're doing right now, and I think it's super cool. And what I think is irrelevant, I almost always follow that up. When I tell my kids I'm proud of them, I still follow it up with, and what I think of you is irrelevant. What you think of you
Mhm.
is most important, because that's the piece of programming I really want to deliver to the people in my life.
Absolutely. 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 I love that. I love that we're open in the conversation and you are open with your everybody around you. Like it is so true. It is so true. You can be loving and considerate that at the end of the day and the beginning of every day, it's everybody has a choice. Everybody has their own choice and their own path and to create their own way, their own beingness. And we can hope and lead and show up in our authentic self so that others can do the same. And that's what we're doing here. If you can't, then will be no joy, right? If
Yeah.
you are dimming, if you're dimming your light and not being authentically you in situations, it will not create joy in your life. And that is the purpose. That's really the what's underneath this conversation is what do you want? Like
What do
get
you
to the core
want?
of what do you want?
What do you want? And I think so many people don't know the answer to that question. So that's a journaling opportunity for everybody out there.
It
What do you
is.
actually want? And
Uh,
that's a really broad question. So practical tool for me today is what do you want? And narrow that down. There are going to be
mhm,
6 major areas of life that we break the pie
mhm,
up into in neurolinguistic programming. And that,
mhm.
I'll see, it's like the 7 doors. Let me see if I can get it all. Spirituality, physical health and wellness, personal growth and development, finances, money, career, relationships, and family. I think that's the first time I
I
have ever
think
named them all off without having to stop and think about it. I'm super proud of myself. I get a gold star
that is
today.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a
So,
good day.
ask yourself, what is it that I
Mhm,
truly desire in this
mhm,
area of my life? If I could wave a magic wand, what do I
mhm.
actually want here? And then once you answer that question, ask yourself if that's what somebody else told you you should want or what you actually want.
What you actually want.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because when you know that, the 7 layers deep answer of why you want this,
Hmm.
then you will always be authentically you.
Right.
Like, why do you feel the need to create this? Like, it's not a need, but it's a vision, a want, an inspiration. And you go down and you ask yourself, okay, so I want this online business, whatever it is. I want this partnership. I want to find the love of my life. Why is that important to you? And then you come with the next, and you just go down 7 layers. And when you have that, if you want that reciprocation of that love and that adoration and that connection, that intimacy, you get to show up in the same value to yourself to
Mm.
attract it. So every single thing in that pie is the same way. You get to show up authentically in your vision, in your inspiration to attract laws of attraction, but literally to mirror what you want, it will come back to you.
Well,
And
and there's a word you
go ahead.
used that I want to highlight there. Values.
Mhm,
So very often we don't really think about what our values are. And so when we don't know what we want, first of all, another pro tip, sit in the discomfort of not having an answer to that question. Number one,
mm,
give yourself the time and the space to figure it out. Take your hand off the panic button
yeah.
because when you have to make a decision and you don't really know, sit with that. Sit with
Mhm,
that. Give yourself the space and the time. In most cases, it's not an emergency.
mhm,
Unless you seriously have a deadline, you can take your hand off the panic button and you can be still and listen
mhm.
and wait for the answer to come. And don't let anybody pressure you to make a decision faster than you need to when it comes to what you
Absolutely.
desire.
I feel like I think what I hear you saying is like, don't, like, I would encourage another tip here or a tool is to sit in silence because rarely we do it. Sit in silence and whatever the answer is, it is already within you. Like it isn't
Right.
within you, it is not outside of you. So if you are silence, you take out all the traffic out here, all of what other people think should happen, and just sit
Right.
in silence and listen because it's already within you. You know the answers if you are silent and listen to your heart.
And you wait
Because
and you
then,
take that
mhm,
time.
mhm,
And one of the ways that I think it's super helpful, that word values that you brought up, if you don't know exactly what it is you want and you're
mhm,
unsure, if you take a really close look at your values in that particular area of life, that whole question, looking at the pie with
mhm,
the 6 areas, and then saying, okay, what do I desire here? If you don't
mhm.
know exactly what it is you desire, if you outline your values in each of those areas, it can help you uncover, like an archaeologist,
Mhm.
what it is you actually desire.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love this. We could go on this. I mean, maybe to lead into a relationship one. But I love this conversation because we get to be our authentic, bold ass self.
Yeah.
Women, men alike, everybody has a unique gift, a unique light, a spark inside your soul that you get to shine bright so that you can create an impact that you want to in this world. So get in contact with your values, chat to
Yeah.
them, um,
Be still and
lean
know.
in. Yes.
Lean into the stillness and then be
Yes.
still and know. Sit in the discomfort of
Yes.
not knowing.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And be authentically you no matter what. And just really feel like, and it's not even a just word. We have repeated it on several times here is don't worry about what other people think, because what other people think
Because
doesn't matter.
it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. I
Yes.
love it. Oh my gosh. This is amazing. I love this
Oh,
session. Oh, hard talk, but we are creating joy here, friends. And
yes.
this is the way to joy.
Yeah, we got a roadmap for you. Keep coming back. We'll tell you the next stop on the atlas. We'll pull it out, dust it off, and show you how we got here. So with that, I will see you next week, beautiful Shannon, and we will see you guys in a bit.
Thank you for being here. Talk to you later.